All right, welcome to Metal Messiah Radio. You're listening to the Powerslaves show with Lori and Toby. And we have, Lori, you want to shoot off there?
Yeah, we want to welcome you all back. And we have a special guest today. We are welcoming Taylor Washington from Paladin. And they are an awesome power thrash band from Atlanta, Georgia. I want to say hi. Thanks for joining us today, Taylor.
Thank you guys so much.
And,
great to be here.
Good. We understand that you are in Chicago. Your album Ascension just came out May 17th, which was last night.
Yes, the album came out yesterday. We played Legion to the Metal Festival yesterday. We were the first band on the main stage, which apparently in years past, there's not been a great turnout for the first band. I was telling me there were like 10 people when he played last year or something, and there was actually a good amount of people when we played yesterday.
You had a pretty good turnout then.
Good. Yeah.
Awesome.
It was great.
So
fun.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that was it. I was just blabbing.
Feel free. We love that. So tell us a little bit about Paladin. You guys are from Atlanta.
Yes.
And you've been around only a couple years, since 2015.
Yeah, we formed in 2015. It was basically right from it was from the ashes of a previous band of mine. And actually me and our other guitarist, Alex, were both in that band. And that broke up, and then us two and the drummer decided to continue on as another group, which was later deemed to be Paladin. and our first show after that was actually within like 3 weeks or something, because we had committed to a show while the previous band was still a thing. And we didn't really want to break that commitment.
You're like, well, so we formed another band and we're going to play anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. And they were like, okay. And that was a lot of pressure for me, because I just decided to take on vocal duties, because I guess no one else really would or could.
So you weren't the vocalist in your previous band?
No, I just played guitar.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. No, Paladin's the first project or of any kind, like even like cover band wise or anything, that I had ever done any vocals for.
Wow. So you've always just been a guitarist. You never did the vocals before.
Yep.
That's crazy.
And I had never tried, well, I had tried, but not very successfully, to sing and play at the same time. That was a really hard thing for me to get down, and I had like 3 weeks to basically put my nose to the grindstone and try to learn so many things.
You're like deer in headlights. Holy shit.
Yeah, the pressure was definitely on.
So then how did you decide on a band name? Like, where did it come from?
It was actually, I'm pretty sure it was our original drummer, Aaron's suggestion. Because we were we were just brainstorming, like hundreds of names probably, just throwing crap out and seeing who liked it and if it sounded good and whatever. And that was one of the only ones
that you could all agree on.
Yeah, that we were like, hey, that's not too bad. And we're all like nerds anyway, so Paladin is perfectly fitting.
Right on.
Totally, yeah. I think we always talk about that when we interview other bands. It's the same kind of thing. We're like, so where did you get that name? And they're like, well, we're D&D geeks, or we're this, or we do that. So it seemed appropriate, or we write about this theme, or whatever. It just seemed appropriate. But so why did you choose this genre of metal, like, versus any other? Because I mean, this album has not just your power thrash, but you've got a little bit of the growly stuff too. So.
Yeah, it's basically like, not equal parts, but there are elements of it's mostly power metal and thrash metal, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say. But it definitely has a melodeath element to it, which, I don't know, it's just like, I like all these things, so I'm going to try to combine them all in some way.
Well, and it's
that was pretty much it.
More so probably just because it's what influenced you and the rest of the band members, correct?
Yeah,
It's
and
what-
I do pretty much all the songwriting. So it's just all my crap. But it's all my garbage.
So really, so you do primarily most of the songwriting is yours?
Yeah, I'll write the songs like completely or to like 90% or something, and then we'll get together as a band and start going over them, and we'll work on like intros and sort of transitional things and outros, and if they're like sometimes they're smaller tweaks, like structural tweaks or whatever that we'll make, but for the most part I just write everything
And then you let them throw their 2 cents in afterwards.
So how long have you been playing guitar and singing?
Well, we know we've only been singing for a couple of years, right?
Well, yeah, I haven't been singing for long at all. I've been playing guitar for like 16-ish years.
Impressive.
So a long time.
And yeah, a while, 2 years. And singing, I didn't really try to start putting forth some kind of concerted effort to like develop it until 8 or so years ago. Before that, I mean, I would just like sing along to
Right.
songs, and the same thing that everybody else does.
Right. But you didn't have you done any kind of training or have you done any
no.
classes or anything with anybody since then, or not at all?
No, I really should.
Come on, I would disagree with that.
Yeah, me too.
That just kind of blows me away though, because like I said, we got a hold of the album, we listened to it and went, oh wow, this is really amazing. He does guitar and vocals, but you're saying you never did vocals before this. We would have never guessed that.
I would have never guessed it.
I mean, it's good. It's pretty solid from our perspective of being people who listen to this genre of music and like power metal in general and thrash. I wouldn't have been able to tell. It's pretty solid for the most part, in my opinion. But I'm not just yanking your chain. I'm just saying it is really good. And obviously, the people who listen to our show are fans of your band, like it enough to say, hey, this is pretty solid. They're not. They're going to be like, whoa, I didn't know that either. They're going to love that information. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
As a band as a whole, what would you say your aspirations are? Where do you want to go? I mean, obviously, you're fairly new on the scene if you think about it. You have 2 demos, and this is your first full-length album. So
and we've been around for 4 years, which isn't really that long.
Not really.
At all.
If you think about it. I mean, there's been bands that have been around for 30 years.
Yeah. And I mean, even in our local scene, there are bands that have been around for, longer than we have, and still have only put out like EPs or demos or nothing.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, is that because it costs a lot to put out albums, or is it time? Is it?
I really don't know. It definitely, there's definitely a cost aspect, but especially now, you don't really have to spend a lot to get a decent sounding thing. So I'm not sure, and it seems like there are a lot of sort of underground bands or whatever that kind of just want to put out EP after EP instead of sort of pooling enough stuff together to get a full length.
Why do you think that is?
I really don't know. That kind of mystifies me because I've always been like a full length guy. I've never been big on EPs.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if it's just kind of part of some kind of DIY underground mentality where they just want to do sort of smaller releases, or if they want to if they'd rather have like more releases than just one
large one.
Releases further apart, but longer.
Do you think that maybe the way that people are releasing stuff digitally as opposed to like albums that are being sold in hard copy might have something to do with that, or don't you know?
Sorry, could you say that again? It just started like a monsoon just happened upon me.
Oh, no way.
So I had to run inside.
You're getting the downpouring rain. Do you think that my question was, do you think that maybe it has something to do with the way that, Spotify and Amazon Music and iTunes and the digital thing, the way music is being released and people are sharing music that way as opposed to like hard copies? Nobody's buying CDs, or maybe that's why they're releasing them in smaller quantities as opposed to large albums. Because you can buy tunes individually as opposed to a whole album.
There's certainly something to be said for that. But in this case, I don't think it necessarily influences it much. Because actually a lot of underground, sort of grittier metal bands, like they're all about cassettes. And I think generally they almost sort of thrive on physical media.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know.
I'm just curious, what your thought might have been on that, because we hear a lot of people saying, find us on, Bandcamp or find us whatever, and you can buy everything digitally, which we like because we can play it obviously for people. But there's something about holding that CD or we buy vinyl. I love vinyl.
Oh, yeah.
Old school. I love spinning a record, and I love artwork. There's something about having that in your hand that I prefer as old school, but it seems like the younger generation is so used to having everything digital.
Yeah, I think the younger people probably are on the digital wagon, which I am myself, honestly, just because it's convenient.
Well, it's easy, yeah.
And but yeah, the sort of the older guys, by older I mean like my age or within like, maybe even 10 years younger than me. But yeah, I think, like, not to harp on the same thing, but for underground metal, I think there's still a big physical thing going on.
That brings an interesting question as far as like age-wise goes. I mean, you're probably, I don't know. We look at Facebook, we look at other information to find out how old you're an '80s kid, right?
Yeah, I was born in '88.
Okay,
so I guess technically I'm a '90s kid, I guess.
Well,
I grew up in the '90s.
So you grew up in the '90s generation. Yeah. So you're not a millennial, so to speak. You're definitely.
Yeah, I think I technically am by the
by what they call it. But you grew up. In a
spiritually, I'm not.
But you like all of the new wave of British heavy metal kind of genre. You weren't a grunge kid.
No, I kind of was, but I love. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I like all kinds of metal, older metal, and new wave of British stuff, and just classic shit. I wasn't really big into grunge, but there was definitely some stuff that I liked. I mean, I was listening to Nirvana a lot when I even picked up guitar in the first place.
Right.
But I was also listening to Black Sabbath, so.
I don't think any guitarist has never listened to Black Sabbath, though. But yeah, so I mean, I was just curious. But how does your music in general? How does it affect you and the world around you personally? Like you, obviously, you're a musician, so.
How does my music affect me and the world around me?
Yeah.
That's
deep.
That's a hard question.
He's like, I'm hungry and I want a hamburger. Don't ask me questions like this.
I really don't know. I'm like super self-critical, and kind of like borderline pessimistic on my general outlook, probably. So I always expect, not necessarily the worst, but I certainly don't expect like the best. I'm not like even leading up to this album release, I wasn't like, oh, it's gonna be. Some other people were like, man, it's gonna be so big, it's gonna be great. Not even people in the band, just like people we know or whatever.
Right.
And I was always just like, well, yeah, I mean, we'll see.
You're like shrugging your shoulders, like, well, if it happens, it happens, but you're not expecting anything big.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know if anytime anyone tells me like, "Oh, it's so good, you guys are so great," I'm just like, "Wow, really? Okay."
Well, all you can do is really just be humble and say thank you, right?
But yeah, it's it's almost hard for me to take compliments because I'm just.
Everybody's your own. You're always going to be your own worst self-critic, always.
Yeah.